Okay, the debate last night proved to the American taxpayer why you should run for your lives from the Walter Mondale Democrats on steroids who think the road to the White House is paved with your tax dollars.
Yes, they will pay more in taxes.
And if we had a value-added tax, it's why we need to do a carbon tax and dividend.
And Joe Biden's saying he's going to raise your taxes. Let's bring in Romina Boccia from the Heritage Foundation. Great to see you, Romina. I mean, it's like run for your lives. This is the Walter Mondale Democrats on steroids.
Yeah, really hold on to your pocketbooks because the American people already cannot afford the federal government that we have. And the Democrats are literally talking about doubling what the federal government spends. Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, federal paid leave and child care, all of that would add about $50 trillion over the next 10 years to the federal budget that is already ballooning out of control.
Yeah, and nothing about the rampant excessive government waste, $1.3 trillion in government overpayments out of entitlement programs. You know, the Democrats are proof why politicians try so hard to get reelected. They would hate to have to make a living under the laws they pass. You know what? It's also this, too. It's all about why it's not whether you win or lose. It's how you place the blame with these guys.
Yes, and if you look at the tax proposals they've made, they would only pay a pittance. So this comes down to imposing massive tax increases on middle class and lower income Americans. And if you look at Europe, you can get an idea of just what kind of a tax increase we're talking about there. In Europe, if you make $37,000, lower middle class, you face marginal tax rates of 50%. That's 50 cents of every additional dollar that you make. And those are the kinds of tax rates that it takes to pay for this big government that the Democrats are promising us.
Exactly. And you just hit the nail on the head. The moderators need to ask this. For your plans, you have to tax the middle class and a lower income class, rather, like they do in Europe. Not once during the 2 nights of the debates did the moderators ask about the whopping big federal debt at $20 trillion plus. And not once did they ask things like, okay, if single payer is so great, then why don't you politicians go into the VA?
Yeah, well, they wouldn't want to do that because there's long waiting lines, and actually what we're trying to do is bring more private sector competition to that sector of the economy as well. And people shouldn't be mistaken, but Medicare for all would be a complete takeover of one of the major industries in this country. It would mean long waiting lines, people dying, waiting for care. That's what we see in Europe with the NIH. That's not what we want here in the United States. They would ban private health insurance. No more. If you like your insurance, you can keep it. That's gone.
Yeah, you know, it's to the left of what China has. Okay, it was a bad night for Joe Biden. He was asked what the one issue he would focus on as president, and he said defeating Donald Trump. Well, I want to get to this. New York Magazine is, the reporter there is tweeting out that a source close to the Biden campaign says his staff is freaking out about his poor performance, and that, you know, the vice president, Joe Biden, not listening to the debate advice, and he's stuck in his ways. Your take on that?
I wish they had reminded him that once upon a time he actually promoted and supported a balanced budget amendment for the U.S. federal budget. That's something we need to be talking about when the American people are already $67,000 in debt for every person just on the national debt. So just think about a family of 4. That's over $200,000.
Romina, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. We should point out that the Biden campaign disputed the New York Magazine story.